Aloha, and welcome to Trust and Verify, the show where we try to help you figure out who to trust and who to verify and how to do it. Tonight, we have a special, huge program running. We're going to try to keep it within around an hour, but we're not going to try to shortchange you. We have a huge subject that I think we really need to start the show off with and get it kicked. Tonight, though, first I got to start with introducing my friend, my partner, my co-host, Boogie Bumper. Boogie, how you doing?
Very good, James. Good to be with you. Good to be with you all, ladies and gentlemen out there. Thanks for joining us on stream.me and YouTube, I believe, rolling hot. There will be a Periscope playback tomorrow. And I just want to give a little tip of the hat. Happy birthday to one Brendan Dilly while we're at it. So thanks for joining us, everyone. Good to be with you.
Awesome. Yes, I agree. Happy birthday, Brendan. But we need to jump. We need to get going. Guys, the world changed right in front of your eyes and nobody wants to talk about it. Big story out of the Washington Examiner that the government is now going to send all security clearance processing through the Pentagon. That's right, folks. Military intelligence will finally be doing the job that they are supposed to be doing. We're going to be utilizing all of the resources that our government actually has at its availability to actually take care of what it's supposed to be taken care of, the security of our country. I can't believe the stories that Boogie's going to read for you. You're not gonna believe what has happened, what's been going on, where this comes from, and why it's important. But I'm telling you that this is of major significant importance. If you can imagine that after World War II, our civilian government was terrified of our military. I don't know why. Doesn't make any sense to me. These guys are patriots. Think about it. Our first president was our first general. I mean, this is how our country was founded. These people are patriots. And for whatever reason, the civilian sold American population that we should be scared of our own military so that they needed to be in charge and they needed to figure these things out. So along that road, you're about to see, Boogie's about to read how bad these people sold us out. Boogie, why don't you go ahead and step in here and kick us off right?
Sure. Just quickly to that before I get to this first article, I guess, this almost gives more credence to what some of us have been talking about for a while, James, in that the theory is that a number of high up intelligence guys from the military itself actually approached Donald Trump some time back and asked him to run, knowing the way that the military was being actively worked against by the Obama administration, to the point where they were being asked to run bombing raids for Al-Qaeda in the Middle East. And they had to actually come out and refuse that. So, and, on top of that, Benghazi, and you've got the guns across the Mexican border as well. So this all ties into it. So here's a first little article I want to show you. This is from the Washington Post, believe it or not. This is back in 2015. The whistleblower who exposed the US's flawed security clearance system finally gets its reward. Now, we have to cast our mind back to 2014 for this. The company that was running the clearance check system was a company called USIS, USIS, back in 2014. They had a lawsuit against them in 2014. Forget this. The lawsuit, which alleged that his employer, USIS, had dumped or failed to perform the required reviews in 665,000 investigations, touched off hearings in Congress and... What? They dumped 665,000 investigations. You can't even contemplate that number, can you? No, 665,000 investigations.
Okay, so the whole government, basically, our entire government never really had a background check done because they blew it with 665,000 investigations. That's unbelievable.
Yep. The accusations that were being heard in Congress, James, were that the company not only defrauded the American government, but posed a real threat to its national security. Get this. USIS, this is from the article, USIS, the government contractor that had done the background checks on Edward Snowden and Washington Navy Yard shooter Aaron Alexis, filed for bankruptcy and went out of business. And the federal government vowed to clean up the failed system that Percival, who is now 49, this is the whistleblower, that had brought to light. 4.5 years later, after blowing the whistle on this mob, he finally got his just desserts, James. So that's how long this thing's been brewing. Now let's throw to this one, True Pundit. This is from September 12 last year. Everybody remember the Iwan brothers? Debbie Wasserman Schultz's personal IT crew, you could call them. That would be one way of calling it. The Iwan security clearances forged, granted access to congressional intel despite falsified vetting. Now, if you look into the nuts and bolts of this, they were given not something new in DC. According to a 2014 audit by the US Office of the Inspector General, which oversees OPM, that's personnel management, thousands of background clearances for Congress and elsewhere in government were forged or pushed through without more than a few minutes of investigation. That's under Barack Obama, ladies and gentlemen. Why would you want that to happen? Why would that be, James?
yeah, exactly. Why would that be? And how in the world, this is what I was just trying to highlight, right? Was that you have civilian oversight, right? But what are they overseeing? If they're also the people in control, what are they doing? They're literally subverting your government from the inside out. And this is why this is such a huge deal, this is drain the swamp 101. Like, this is a death blow. This is one of those kind of shots that we literally just stabbed a knife in their kidneys. Like, I'm telling you, these guys are going down at this point. But I don't want to get ahead of Boogie on the story because I'm so fired up by this. But this is huge. The Office of Personnel Management is just as complicit as everybody in the FBI that we know about and everybody in the DOJ. This is why these things are happening at the time they're happening. Remember, timing is everything. Go ahead, Boogie.
Yeah, let's play this, a very short clip from about 3 months ago, which will indicate to you, ladies and gentlemen, this is just not some kind of whim, because I suspect that's going to be the next thing, James. It'll be spun in the media. Donald Trump isn't. He's making rash decisions. He's flying by the seat of his pants. Again, though, these people, the White House, are telling you in advance what their plans are. You just got to be able to listen.
Yeah, before you play that you bring up an excellent point, is that, and in fact, there was just a comment by Millie in there about this. They've already started spinning it. Remember the story that just came out about a week and a half or so ago, where they were already talking about, well, any general who's still in the Pentagon is already a compromised person because they stuck around and worked for Barack Obama. All right, let's think about that rationally, okay? That statement on its surface sounds right. But as soon as you get beyond the surface, you realize that patriots fight from every angle. It's like us right here, right? What are we doing? We're on the internet fighting on the platforms that the people hate us on. We're fighting on Periscope. We're fighting on Twitter. We're fighting on Facebook. We're fighting on YouTube. We're even fighting on Google, which we'll touch on a little bit later as well. This is the same thing. These people that were in there, in most instances, I'm going to say this, in most of our general officers, these people have been fighting from inside the system. Okay? You have to be in the game in order to play the game. If you quit, go home and retire, what good are you? You are literally doing nothing. What is that, a protest? I mean, come on. The only way you're going to fight is being in the fight. These men are patriots. That's why they went into the military. Yes, we have people that are compromised everywhere, but in the Pentagon, I guarantee that number is 0.1119%. I mean, it's going to be microscopically small because most people do not make it that far in their military careers without being a patriot, because it is not easy to do that job, for one. For two, it takes extreme intelligence to make it to the general officer level. For three, it takes extreme ability to get there. So trust your patriots. And remember what Boogie started this conversation off on, is that we are pretty sure that the General Officer Corps came to Donald Trump and said, sir, it's time. The country needs you. That's what we're pretty sure happened. And if you look back at Donald Trump's life, like I'm going to go into a little bit of history here. Look back at his life. Look back at all those clips. Look back at everything he said on the Phil Donahue show, Oprah. He shook and met and was in the White House with Nixon, with Reagan, with Clinton, with every president since Nixon Donald Trump has been in and around the power people in Washington. He's been training for this his whole life. And so when those generals, those people came to him and said, it's time, our country is about to fall off the cliff, he stepped up and he did his duty. And we are gaining the benefit of this right now. And I think it is amazing. And it is an amazing time to be alive. Go ahead, Boogie.
Sure. This is from 3 months ago, ladies and gentlemen, so just try to keep that in mind.
Chief of Staff John Kelly outlined improvements to White House security clearance processes. In a memo, Kelly said recent events have exposed some remaining shortcomings, referencing fallout from when 2 staffers resigned amid allegations they abused their ex-wives. Kelly outlined new, more direct communication regarding background checks and their results. He said starting next week, temporary clearances for staffers whose background checks have been pending since June 1st or earlier would be discontinued. He also outlined how those temporary clearances would be limited in the future. Brought onto the White House staff as a stabilizer, Kelly said some changes had already been put in place. He personally faced scrutiny in his handling of those abuse allegations. Despite reports he had been willing to resign amid the backlash, Kelly's memo seems to reinforce his desire to stay on board.
Now, one little thing that I got out of that, James, they discontinued pending security clearances. Now, why would that be? Could that be possibly because the clearance system itself was compromised? Because you can't necessarily trust the people who are running that system? Is it because he came in and identified who was in control of handing out the security clearances and who they weren't allowing in and who they were allowing in, and then said, okay, that stops today until we can get in? This is 3 months ago. So 3 months later, big announcement, guess what? We're taking over. We're taking over the show. And I just want to throw another little curveball out there if I can. Mike Cernovich is a polarizing character. I think that's a fair comment to make. I remember watching him. The fair statement. I remember watching him on the Alex Jones show around 12 months ago saying the system for handing out security clearances is of the most importance, because he was being told at the time, and plenty of people suspect that his source inside the administration was Donald Trump Jr., but that's not confirmed. Like, that's just what people say. And, you know, people say a lot of things.
Right.
But he said that he was being told the people who are running the security clearance protocols and systems were not allowing, patriots in because they weren't able to be blackmailed. So the people who run the polygraphs and do the background checks, they find something on you, or they already have something on you. And then they say, okay, we're going to let you in and you're going to do exactly what we say. Otherwise, we're going to burn you. Like, you wouldn't want those photos coming out, would you? You know what I mean? Like, they get people, they get them drunk, they take photos of them in compromising positions, and then they've got them. And, you know, from that point on, and he said it's rife. It's rife in the system. Kind of walked away from that a little bit, but then you've had plenty of other people making similar pronouncements. So, you know, I've spoken before, James, about the entertainment industry. Now, the people who get famous, it's like a dam. You've got all of these musicians and actors and artists all pressing up against the wall of the dam. But the people who control when the dam is open and closed, who gets through that wall, is very, very small. Like, we're talking a handful of people who decide who's going to become stars. If you've got a backlog of thousands and thousands and thousands of people who can't get security clearances, and a handful of people who are basically in control of that process, who decides who gets the good information on the inside of the government, you can see what, a small amount of people, what kind of damage they can do to a new administration when it comes in, just by that power, power of withhold.
Yeah, you're basically talking about the Milli Vanilli of our government. I mean, these people, that's how they get squoke in, right? They squeak in with they have no talent, yet they still get through. How does that make sense? Like you just said, thousands of people lined up that are quality musicians, but they don't make it. But somebody that can't sing a lick without an auto-tuner and lip syncing, they somehow get to become a star. It's the same exact principles here. Is that this is what tells rational, logical thinkers that the system has been perverted. we're 90% sure. I did see Millie, by the way. I did see your return comments. God bless your family for your service. I am aware that you guys are prior active duty military, and I really appreciate everything you guys have done. And we totally agree with you, especially at Trust and Verify, that yes, the Pentagon does need to be purged as well. It's just not as severe as it is in the civilian side. It's the civilian side that has perverted this. Remember, all of our military leaders take their orders from civilian control. So you don't necessarily know that the military guys are bad. They could just be following orders. You know, there's a chain of command in place for a reason, and most of those guys are stuck following orders from the Joint Chiefs. And when you got someone like Barack Obama, clearly subverted from the top down, those guys were passing down orders that basically had to be followed, or you lose your career. I mean, we all get it. There's a reason why you have military police and military brigs, because even in the military, there's still bad people. We get it. But in this particular instance, what I'm mostly referring to is that, general officers in general aren't the problem. It's generally people well below that rank, unless they're the political animal that jumps up to the top. And that's what we saw happen with Barack Obama. Look at the thousands of quality general officers we lost when Barack Obama was elected. Thousands. Like almost every single general was gone, and a whole crop of new colonels was promoted. And I mean, you can look back at history to see that where the problem started and why the problems got even worse. I truly believe that this time around, we can trust. Mattis knows who to trust, and we have to trust Mattis because he's proven to be sterling. We know Admiral Rogers was to be trusted, and we know he's proven to be sterling, and he promoted Lieutenant General Paul Nakasone to take over. And here's another little tidbit. This is a kind of a side note to exactly the subject that we're talking about. Is General Mattis was just here for a changing of the guard in Pacific Fleet Command. He was not at the changing of command for NSA and cybersecurity. So what does that tell you? That tells me that there was something more important than changing command that he was here for. And then when you realize that the admiral leaving Pacific Fleet Command is going to become the ambassador to Korea, and then you realize what Pacific Fleet Command would be in charge of going forward, why would the defense secretary need to be here personally for that changing of command? Most likely, in my opinion, because he needed to brief the new commander personally on need-to-know, eyes-only information that he couldn't get in any other way until he became the commander for Pacific Fleet. And so if you look at that, you see a bigger picture of what's going on when you start talking about who can we trust. We know that our people are in there now. We know that the commands are being changed everywhere for a reason. We know specific people are being fast-tracked and promoted to the right positions to make sure that they take over from all these supply sergeants that have been running around with their hair on fire since Barack Obama promoted them. What do you think, Book?
Well, we've just as a side note, we've just lost the chat box there, James. So I'll read a bit of this article if you want to try and bring that up again.
Yeah.
And let's see how this may be. So when we're talking about removing personnel that may or may not be compromised, clearing backlogs to get your people in via the security system process, that's going to take some time. It's not going to be an instantaneous change overnight. But what you've done now is you've stopped the bleeding. So you now have control over who's getting clearances, and you can fast track the ones that matter, and you can deny the ones that need to be denied. And if you're not believing what James is saying about the war that goes on between like civilian intelligence and military intelligence, ask yourself how a former, let's say hypothetically, how does a former DNI, right, the Director of National Intelligence, how does a guy get to that position? How does he get through the security clearance process back when he went through it, just hypothetically, despite being an admitted communist, for example. So, yes, I'm a communist. Guess what? You know what? We're going to give you a security clearance anyway. I don't see any problem with that. Don't be silly. That was when you were young. That's nothing that can be compromised later on in life, surely. Away you go, Mr. B, hypothetically speaking, of course. So I want to bring up this article from Red State. The DOJ IG report must be devastating because the media has already started the spin cycle. So let's add this. Let's layer this on top, James. Sometime in the next couple of weeks, the Department of Justice IG, Michael Horowitz, is scheduled to release reports on how the Department of Justice and the FBI conducted the investigation of Hillary Clinton's email and on the FBI and Justice monitoring of the Trump campaign. The report is being circulated for comment. This is typically how IGs handle their reports, and hints of what it contains is beginning to leak out from the direction of the media reports. The report will probably be ugly. So, let's not rush this. Let's drag that out, but layer this. We've got to layer everything on top. Draining the swamp. It's not just a slogan. So we've stopped the bleeding in terms of security clearance, which feeds directly into the intelligence services. We've replaced a record amount of judges, if I'm not mistaken, James, across the country. Is that correct?
Yes, that's definitely correct. Definitely correct. Yes, Trump administration, okay, and still has more to go.
More to go. Now, the IG cannot prosecute. He doesn't prosecute. I liken it like this. You've got in a sniper team, you've got one guy who pulls the trigger and one guy who spots targets.
Sorry, let me interrupt real quick. Actually, it is discovered and I can't remember it, and we'll figure it out later, guys, but you can do the research on this one. The IG actually does have prosecutorial discretion. There's a new law that, guess who brought in?
Oh, really?
Guess who brought it into play? Oh. Barack Obama. The Barack Obama decided, their administration brought in this nice little new thing where the IG does have some prosecutorial discretion because they were trying to figure out how to end run the attorney general. This is why this came into play. So, yeah, he actually does have some prosecutorial discretion there. Now,
well, you know it.
Yeah.
There seems to be, James, there appears to be some kind of trend appearing here whereby under the stewardship of Barack Obama, the Democrats, knowing full well that Hillary Clinton would indeed be the next ordained ruler of the free world, that baton would be passed down like, what's an election, really? Let's not worry about the election. Knowing that full well, they went about subverting the Constitution, the intelligence services, the courts, the judiciary. The IRS was being used as a weapon against conservative and libertarian groups. The army was being used to do bombing raids on behalf of Al-Qaeda. This was a complete upheaval, upturning of the American system as we know it. But it's just all been in darkness. Yep. And once again, we find these little rules, these little loopholes that were brought in. No wonder they were panicking. I mean, because they've done all this. They've opened up all of these back doors in anticipation for their victory, and now someone else has taken the wheel. It's like stealing a car and then getting carjacked. They've stuck the knife in. They've stuck the knife in the window at the set of lights and stolen the Ferrari. And then they get down to the next set of lights, and Donald Trump comes out with a shotgun, and he goes, "Hang on, that's going to be mine. Thanks, I'm going to take it for a spin now. Thank you very much."
I love it, love it. Steal the car and get carjacked. That is amazing. That is the type of intelligence and wit that Boogie Bumper brings to the show. That is freaking amazing. So. Yeah,
he does have prosecutorial powers, but see that's another little bonus on top. But what I was getting at is we've replaced the judges, we've stemmed the bleeding in terms of intelligence, the leaks have stopped, and now the IG report, if it does drop in a couple of months' time, you no longer have the same mix of liberal judges, activist judges, you would call them, who can use the law to get around possible prosecutions. Because if this is as big as it is, it's not all going to be in one jurisdiction, is it? Like, this is going to be across the country. Mm-hmm. If we're talking about people in the FBI and the DOJ, it's not just Washington based, is it? Like, we're talking states, we're talking different offices around the country, are we not?
Oh, that's why you see people like Preet Bharara panicked Panicked. That's why he wanted to keep his job so bad. That's why he thought, oh, we got this, boys. Yeah, he already promised me I'm staying in there. And then when he got fired, he's like, what? You can't do that. What? He didn't understand, because these guys are panicked, man. They need that control. They need to be at the top levels. Without them up there, man, they know they're all, I mean, this whole thing is going to come down. I mean, when you know that the average indictment for like years, we're not talking just the Barack Obama years, for years is like 2,000 a year. And you realize there's like 5,000 a year going on right now. You know that there is something significant happening in our country. All of these things are tied together. That's why I said, you know, this is why I made the statement that this story is the biggest change in government we have seen in 50 plus years. This is a polar shift that is the military is finally back to doing the job they should be doing. We've already talked about before other things that are just, they're not being talked about on any of the mainstream media anywhere, is that the NSA and the Cyber Command, arguably in today's technological society, the two most important aspects to our government, are now being put in the hands of the military. They are no longer in the hands of civilians running these covert operations. We are putting things back into a proper chain of command, that if the president says we're going to do a covert op, we're going to do it. Not the Secretary of State on their own, not just some random national security advisor. These things are going to come down through presidential chains of command. These things are not going to be personal fiefdoms. They're not going to be run out of the Office of Professional Management, where they screw up 665,000 investigations for background checks. I mean, I'm amazed that this is not being covered by mainstream people, because this is major change for going forward. Like Boogie's point, I think he was just making, was that now we're moving forward. This is the same exact levels of predictions we've been doing for 2 years, is that we told you the chessboard was being set up. Now it was time to execute, and look at what's happening. People are coming out. The IG report is going to drop by Wednesday of next week, in my opinion. When that investigation gets dropped, they're going to have 2 days of the week to freak out. It's going to simmer through the weekend, and that by Monday, we're going to have movement. Things are going to be moving by the following Monday. So this week is huge. Again, even looking at, like, again, I love the people, you guys have all heard me talk about it before. I don't care whether Q is a 14-year-old in a basement or he's the vice president of the United States. I really don't care who he is, because he's causing everybody out there to investigate for themselves. And when the president, this is a confirmed fact that comes through True Pundit, when the president's administration lets all of the media know not to post any scoops Thursday or Friday, that means they're telling you, we don't want you stepping on the thunder. But then there's no thunder. What does that tell you? You better go find the thunder. Here's the thunder. The thunder is, we just changed the world. Look at all of the stories that are coming out. Look at what's really going on. This is why these things are all connected. They are all connected, and we are winning. I think we've lost the chat again. I'm going to try to reboot that while you take back over, Boogie.
Sure. Well, just let's go from Q to something else. This was top linked on Drudge, James. I'll just shift gears here while we're at it. Facebook gave device makers deep access to data on users and friends. Yes, who would have thunk it? Mark Zuckerberg lied. I know, butter wouldn't melt in his mouth. As Facebook sought to become the world's most dominant social media service, this is the New York Times, by the way, that well-known right-wing conspiracy rag. It struck agreements allowing phone and other device makers to access vast amounts of its users' personal information. Facebook has reached data sharing partnerships with at least 60 device makers, including Apple, Amazon, BlackBerry, Microsoft, and Samsung over the last decade, starting before Facebook apps were widely available on smartphones, company officials said. The deals allowed for Facebook to expand its reach and let device makers offer customers popular features of the social network, such as messaging, like buttons, and address books. But the partnerships, whose scope was not previously reported, raised concerns about the company's privacy protections and compliance with a 2011 consent decree with the Federal Trade Commission. Facebook allowed the device companies access to the data of all users' friends without their explicit consent, even declaring that it would no longer share information with outsiders. Some device makers could retrieve personal information, even from users' friends who believe they had barred any sharing, the New York Times found. So that's number one. Yeah, we didn't do it intentionally. Now, obviously, we've noted recently, James, censorship is ramping up. There's a lot of people to get to. So it's probably going to be a rolling process. We saw Joey Manorino from Your Voice America. He was the latest one to feel the axe. I was on the Daniel Barron show on the weekend, James. Tamara Lee, she had about 85,000 followers on Twitter. Big influential woman, does a lot of podcasts, does a lot of shows, involved in, Women for Trump and that sort of thing, an entrepreneur. She was accused of being a bot, believe it or not. I've spoken with this bot. It's incredibly lifelike, the technology. She looks like a human being.
Didn't we do a hammering just the other week on the bot thing with Andrea Mitchell or something like that? I mean,
I'm sure if we haven't, we will. You know what? I'm off Google now as well, because Google has become completely ridiculous to the point where these following stories did not come up on Google. Check this out. So even Salon, judge rules Trump can't block users from his Twitter feed. We know that, okay? We know that. James broke that down, a couple of weeks ago now. Twitter blocks gun supporter but allows death threats against her. Caitlin Bennett, grassroots director of conservative group Liberty Hangout, recent graduate of Kent State University and outspoken Second Amendment rights activist, made a name for herself on social media by taking a visual pro-gun stance during the liberal brouhaha of March for Our Lives. Weeks ago, Bennett generated buzz for herself and the pro-gun cause by posting a picture of herself in graduation attire while holding an AR-10 rifle. Remember that? On Wednesday, Bennett posted a picture of herself on Twitter facing away from the camera and holding two pistols. The caption said, "If I had a pistol for every gender there is." It was clever and lighthearted jab at rabid gun prohibitionists and contentious non-binary community, but the social justice arbiters at Twitter found it a bit more serious than that and blocked her. We also have this. Outrage as Twitter suspends popular teenage Born Free ambassador and environmental campaigner. A 15-year-old for the Born Free Foundation. He was dumped by Twitter. And Devin Nunes. Now, again, I think what we're dealing with here is, I think that we have a tendency to view everything in isolation, like in a vacuum. So like we can layer on top the IG report, the replacement of judges, the changes in the security clearances, one feeds into the other. Again, with this, the Donald Trump's not allowed to block people on Twitter. The Twitter censorship's rolling. They're taking down ever bigger accounts. Devin Nunes, this was today, Devin Nunes hammers Twitter for censoring the Drudge Report. Okay, so we can see the game plan as we head into the 2018 midterms. But the beautiful part is it's been so obvious. This is my opinion. What we're dealing with here has been so obvious and so overt, James. I think we're past that point. Like, censorship is not going to work now, guys.
Yeah.
You have way too many people. Like, you've always said, right? Network, follow each other, get involved with each other, like, exchange information as best as you can, because that's the antidote, isn't it, really? Yep. Like what we're doing here on a different platform, that's the antidote. TAVshow.com, like getting all the people together, like Doc and Mary Grace and Zero's on there, everybody's on there. That's the antidote, because, right. You got to think of it like a whack-a-mole. So, a big Twitter account comes up. We want them to hit that one Twitter account and then have it explode into 20 Twitter accounts. Like Fantasia. Remember when he smashes Mickey Mouse with an axe and then two Mickey Mouses come up. Then he smashes them with an axe and then there's 8 Mickey Mouses and they're all chasing him around, right? Same principle applies here. Yep. It's not about how big you are. It's about how many of you there are, and it's growing every single day.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the power of one. I've talked about this forever. I mean, it doesn't matter if you can reach one person, if you can change one person's mind. If each one of us do that, we double in size. Like, that's all it takes. Don't feel overwhelmed. It's not a big thing. Just network better. Find people that are like-minded. Hook up, get to know them. Utilize the features that we can use, like Zoom. Zoom is a huge tool for you guys to use. Even if you've only met 5 people, create a little Twitter DM room and open up a little Zoom chat with you guys once a week and get to know each other. You know, maybe you hate each other. Cool. Find somebody else. Add them to the room. There, you know, we do I forgot to mention earlier, and I should mention this right now because it is important and it's something I've talked about forever. Tuesday is California primaries, guys. Tuesday. We're fighting for California. I'm going to speak for James Bradley because I personally know him, have talked to him in real life and on Zoom many times. We talk all the time. He's a really good guy. You might disagree with some points, but he's a really good guy and he will listen. He understands what the game is that he doesn't know everything, but he knows how to pick and listen to the right people. Okay, so I'm going to speak up for James Bradley. I'm going to say that your president has spoken up for John Cox. So I get that a lot of you are on the Travis Allen train, and I don't want to get in between you and the president. I'm just going to say the president has chosen John Cox. If it were up to me, I'm back in the president's play. He knows more than we do. He has access to more information, and I'm going to learn the lesson of Alabama, and I'm not going to go against the president. So that's just me personally. But you guys got to do what you got to do. Get out there and vote. Tuesday, make sure that you're paying attention. Do a good job at networking. Encourage everybody you know. This is the fight for California. This is like the Ruby Prize. This is almost to the diamond, but not quite. This is that big thing out there that we're trying to do. Even if we can only gain one seat out there, even if we can only gain the governorship out there, even if we just pick off a congressional seat with Edwin Duterte, whatever we can do, we got to get there and get it done. We got to do it for California.
Yeah, like let me throw something at you here. I don't want to be cheerleader because that's not the kind of person I am. Is California gettable? I tend to think that it's not about this cycle. This cycle is about creating a better foundation for the next one, you know, a few more years down the track, where I think, you know, large sections of California can be gettable, just mainly because the left in California have gone so far off the rails in the last couple of years that I think that they're just going to turn what remaining moderate Democrats there are in the state right off. But it becomes a problem of messaging then for the Republican candidates, doesn't it? It's a really tough ask. Like, you know, the Republicans in California get a bad rap, I think, from the rest of the country. Like, they get a lot of stick as, you know, they're not hard enough and, you know, they should be doing better. They're really like, that's the hardest battleground. Like, that is the heart and soul. That's the beating heart of the Democrat. That is. That is. And, you know, you have to give Republicans in California some leeway, I think, if you're being fair, on their messaging in an effort to appeal to a broader voter base. You know, so it's all well and good for people in, you know, the South to be saying, oh, the Republicans in California, they're not hard enough, you know, they're not strong enough on this issue and that issue. I think if you look at it objectively, they really can't be too Republican. Like, hey, we're all adults here. This isn't high school. You're allowed to cheat. Okay, and then when I say cheat, don't get me wrong. No, but you're allowed to look at you're allowed to look at what someone else is doing, and if it works, you're allowed to emulate that strategy. Look how the Democrats are attacking purple areas and Republican areas. Connor Lamb in Pennsylvania, they're running military veterans in red states, in red districts. Okay, they are appealing directly to Republican voters. Why can't Republicans do the same in places like California? Yeah, if it works.
Yeah, no, I hear where you're coming from exactly, and I would point this out. Remember, I'm one of the leaders all over the internet that says repeal the 17th Amendment. Repeal the 17th Amendment. This is why we're in this problem. This will help drain the swamp. It would have, if we never would have had the 17th Amendment, we wouldn't have the swamp in this position. Your federal government wouldn't be this powerful. That was the whole point. Absolutely, we need to repeal the 17th Amendment. Having said that, this is the point, is that what works in Alabama does not work in California. What works in California should not work in Utah or Arizona. I mean, that's the point, is that every state is a state isolated by itself for different reasons. People like different things. That's what makes us great as a country, is that we're able
That's the way
to live.
It's supposed to be. That's the system. It's competitive. It's competitive federalism. That's what the founding fathers envisaged. The states competing against each other to help each other improve, to lift each other up. Because if the good state's doing the right thing, you go, I want to be where that guy is. I want what that guy's got. So you copy the good things and you discard the bad things. The Obama era is full of the federalization and, you know, the diminishing of that system of competitive federalism, whereby everybody just appeals to Washington and Washington doles out the cash and doles out the ideas. You go to Washington if you want something to be changed. That's the last thing you want.
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. So I couldn't agree with you more. And I saw a lot of the comments. You guys are absolutely right. And Antonio Sabato Jr., we definitely need to support him out there. I mentioned Edwin Duterte. I mentioned James Bradley. Again, I saw other people in the chat comment that we have met him personally. We have talked to him one-on-one for hours at a time. Like, the guy is MAGA. The guy knows what he's talking about. This guy has experience. Here's a good thing. He has experience inside the healthcare industry. Now, that doesn't mean that he knows exactly what to do in the healthcare industry, but he knows how the game is played. And with the right people talking to him and the right information being given to him and shared with him, he's going to know how to get that accomplished. He's a guy that can go there in the Senate. And remember, we only missed healthcare reform by one, Mr. McInsane. Okay. So if we can pick up the Feinstein seat and replace him with James Bradley, we're getting healthcare done, guys. We're getting Obamacare out the door. Okay, that's what we need to remember. That's how big a game we're playing right now. We're playing for keeps, and we're fighting for the state of California. We're fighting for all those red people in California. I say this all the time, is that you guys don't realize that California is about 50% Republican. Okay, I'm like one of 15 people in Hawaii that's Republican. Okay, so just keep that in mind. Be glad that you have a fighting chance in California, because I don't have a whisper of a dream of a chance in Hawaii. Okay, so get out there and fight this fight. You guys are the front line. I can't help you. I can only encourage you. And I know that Boogie doesn't like to be the cheerleader, so that's my job. I'm the cheerleader. Go, Cali, go. Go, Cali, go. So let's get back into things here, because we're still breaking down the biggest news of the century. The government is now going to set all of our security clearances through the Pentagon. I know that Boogie was just breaking down how social media censorship, where it's going, and the fact that he literally just highlighted an entire chain of articles that you can't Google. Think about that. Everybody loves to say, just Google it. Guess what? You can't Google it. Why? Because Google is part of the censorship problem. Boogie is going to explain how he found all of these articles with a completely different search engine, and all of them from mainstream sources. They're even censoring mainstream sources because the stories don't agree with their ideology. Take it away, Boog.
Yeah, I went to Bing, long and short of it. I know Bing's not perfect. It's a Microsoft-run platform, but a lot of people are saying now that what Google has been engaged in is so overt and so over the top, because consider, like, you had the story last week of the Republicans coming up as a Nazi ideology in California, okay, because they link search results, they get information from Wikipedia. So that's one thing. During the election campaign, it's like we forget this stuff. During the election campaign, if you put in Clinton body count into Google searches, even though it's all the the people who have mysteriously died when they've been around the Clinton team over the last 20 years, and that list is up to about 100 or so now, you would get a body shop, like a panel beater in some little town, right? Which has no right being at the top of the search engine. They were actively smothering results for Donald Trump. They push all the anti-Trump stuff to the top. We know this. Like, it's not a secret. So, I think, if we can, people are starting to get out of the Facebook mind frame a little bit now. And I think if we can just get out of the Google mindset a little bit as well, people like saying DuckDuckGo and other search engines. Proud is another one, by all means, right?
Right.
But, Google has become part of the vernacular, as you said. Like, it's a word in the English language now to Google something, right? We're kind of locked in these mind prisons. I don't know. Do you want to do a little bit of racism? Can we talk about racism for a minute?
Yeah, I think it's time. I think we should. I think we should definitely kick into the clips section. We've been rolling for about 47 minutes. We're going to run a little bit overtime. Boogie's got some fantastic clips lined up for us, so I'm all for it. Let's talk about racists. Come on. I know you're a Nazi. Let's go.
Let's go. I thought this was incredibly funny for a number of reasons, which we'll get to. But Don Lemon is just obsessed with this stuff. He is race obsessed. It's the only thing he ever talks about, basically. Just listen to the start of this and tell me what you think.
Is President Trump sending a message tonight, a bat signal to political allies and former...
a bat signal. Donald Trump sending the bat signal. That would be... maybe that's modern nomenclature for dog whistle, because remember it would have been.
I'm looking up in the sky. I'm not seeing the bat signal.
Can't see it.
I can't see it.
It's just a big T. I think you were looking for. A big T in the sky.
Golden. It's a big signal. Golden T. It's got to be
golden T. This, by the way, comes off the back of the pardoning of Dinesh D'Souza. So we'll get to that. Just check out Don and his wacky work.
Raids in the sites of the Mueller investigation. Are his pardons a way of telling them, don't worry, I have the power to pardon you too. Just like I pardoned Dinesh D'Souza, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, and Scooter Libby. Doesn't matter if you've pleaded guilty, like...
See, Donald Trump pardoning Dinesh D'Souza is about sending a message to the Mueller investigation. Can you believe this stuff?
Yeah.
Conservative flamethrower D'Souza, who was sentenced to 5 years probation and a $30,000 fine for violating federal campaign finance laws.
Yep.
So are the president's pardons all about politics?
No.
We'll have more on
racism,
that
surely.
And that all comes on the day the president doubled or tripled down on his demands for an apology from ABC in the wake of Roseanne Barr's firing for that racist Twitter attack on Valerie Jarrett.
Oh, my God. No.
Again,
Are you kidding?
Iger, where is my call of apology? You and ABC offended millions of people, and they demand a response.
I love it.
How is Brian Ross doing?
How's
he
Brian
take
Ross
the market
doing?
With an ABC Live, yet no apology. Double standard.
Yeah.
The president completely ducking the point there. Roseanne's tweet was straight up racist, yet the president failed to condemn it. Why? Because he can't. Because his own words and actions are racist too.
Okay. President Donald Trump failed to condemn Roseanne Barr's tweet because he's also a racist. And then he goes through all the usual stuff, good people on both sides. It's all quite boring. But on the topic of pardons, James, presidential pardons, I found this particularly interesting because I thought at that point, I'm like, oh, okay, so Donald Trump pardoning Sheriff Joe Arpaio, who's given, about half a century's worth of loyal service to law enforcement. Dinesh D'Souza, who is, as Don Lemon said, referred to him as a conservative flamethrower, which I thought is a nice.
Let me take some quick umbrage right there. I want to take some umbrage with the conservative flamethrower. Like literally, Dinesh. Literally, Dinesh posts out facts. I'm a flamethrower. I'm the guy that throws hand grenades in the room. Okay? I'm the guy that says, fry them all, kick them to the curb, whereas Dinesh is just out there with facts. So I'm going to take a little umbrage. I think he should be attacking me.
Yeah, I mean, if you're gonna slander somebody, at least make it contextual, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Like at least apply the slur appropriately, Don. I mean, he's new to this racism things, I guess. So, he'll figure it out. He'll figure out the name calling at some point. But yeah, so Dinesh D'Souza, conservative filmmaker, meek and mild, apparently a flamethrower. This comes on the back of last week, by the way. Don Lemon interviewing the former ambassador to Panama, who referred to Donald Trump as literally a velociraptor. So they are getting more creative. We've got to hand it to them. For the longest time, we've been saying the liberal mainstream media aren't creative enough. They're very predictable. Donald Trump is literally a velociraptor handing out pardons to flamethrowers. So that's a nice change.
Yes.
But I thought I'd go back and look at President Obama's, his pardons, which I'm not really into whataboutism, but I thought on this occasion, well, I'll see, because apparently Donald Trump handing out pardons is the worst thing that's ever happened, and it just proves that he's a racist. Here's a quote. The commutations were the most done in a single day, the White House said, and brought the total number of sentences reduced by Obama to 1,715. Quote, the vast majority of these men and women are serving unduly long sentences for drug crimes. I went through and looked at the list. We're talking about cocaine trafficking, heroin trafficking, drug dealers, these types of people with divine sparks. The move means Obama has granted more commutations than any other US president in history and has surpassed the number granted by the past 13 presidents combined.
Wow.
Combined.
Wow.
Right? So Donald Trump gives a pardon to Sheriff Joe and Dinesh D'Souza. That makes the news. President Obama pardons more people than these 13 previous presidents combined, most of which, admittedly, from his own White House, are drug dealers and drug traffickers. And what a great guy. What a great guy.
Look at this from the point of view of Fast and Furious. Let's just tie some real stats together. You have an administration that is guilty of running an operation of gun running with Fast and Furious to Mexican drug cartels. At the same time as you have the same people fighting for open borders, at the same time that you have the Hollywood selling everybody that basically drug crimes are victimless crimes and everybody should be less sentenced, to an Obama administration who is literally pardoning drug dealers and basically people that are guilty of murder in some instances because of the access to some very serious drugs to people literally letting them out of prison. And the left thinks that pardoning a little librarian-styled person like Dinesh D'Souza, who literally is just... Yeah, he's literally just sticks to the facts of things. Like, the only flame throwing he does is, like, to stop the advancement of their lies. Like, I'm going to burn that lie out of the sky with this fact. I'm going to burn that lie out of the ground with this fact. I mean, that's, if you want to call him a flamethrower for that, yeah, I still don't see it. I mean, literally, Dinesh D'Souza is very mild-mannered. He rarely even raises his voice. Even when he's talking, he has a dynamic pitch range, but he doesn't really raise his voice to make a point. If in anything, he gets quieter, and he talks like this. And he says that Donald Trump is the best president that has ever been in the United States.
That's true, but unfortunately for Dinesh James, he didn't sell enough cocaine, therefore he's not worthy of he's not worthy. He's not worthy of the divine.
Dinesh didn't sell enough cocaine. Oh my god, dude.
No.
I love doing the show with you.
Worthy. He doesn't get labeled with the divine spark, you see. The divine spark that's in people like MS-13.
Right.
They're not animals, James. They're victims. They're victims of American capitalism and oppressive freedom, which people are flocking to day after day after day. Do we want to transition now? You said you wanted to talk about Canada. Oh, Canada, you not send no more steel. US hits EU, Canada, and Mexico with steel aluminum tariffs, sparking a trade war. If I'm going to war with somebody, I want it to be Justin Trudeau.
He's literally the guy that probably said, look, guys, we're not going to provide you with the sabot rounds. You're going to have to use the flower round. I want you guys to shoot flowers at your enemies so that they stop fighting us and turn to love and peace. Literally, I could see that guy doing that.
Didn't he say at one point in regards to ISIS terrorists, if you kill your enemies, they win?
Yeah.
Isn't that one of the quotes?
That's what I'm saying. He would take the sabot rounds away from the tankers, and he's going to give them rounds that just produce flowers when they land.
This is from the article, James, NBC News, and this will lead into our hammering segment, by the way. We've got a very funny hammering for you. The Trump administration on Thursday slapped tariffs on steel and aluminum imports from Canada, Mexico, and the European Union, prompting outrage from America's closest allies and major trading partners and setting off a trade war that could see US consumers pay more for everything from canned soup to cars. No more chicken on your plate. I think that's the message there.
What a callback. That's a great callback. Chicken on your plate. You guys remember to watch our previous episodes where we had I think it was the congressman or senator from the Democrat Party say that if we built a wall that you would no longer be allowed to have chicken on your plate because there'd be no one there to serve it.
That's right.
Like literally the most racist thing that you could possibly say. So that was an excellent callback by Boogie Bumper to remind you of a couple episodes ago. But yeah, Justin Trudeau, these guys in this Canada war. I mean, come on. Are we going to get to his response where he's like, he literally thinks that by increasing the tariff on orange juice, he's going to win the trade war with us? Like, what is this guy smoking?
The U.S. Commerce Secretary Wilbur Ross confirmed to reporters in an early morning phone call that the White House will add 25% import tariff on steel and 10% tariff on aluminium after trade talks crumbled ahead of the June 1st deadline. Market reaction was also swift. The Dow Jones fell sharply after the move was announced, dropping by 250 points as investors took measure of the impact of the ongoing trade tensions and falling to 300 points after Canada's retaliation. That will come back up. That will come back up once investors realize how much money there is to be made in American steel. You watch that go right up. So I don't know, do you want to? Oh, for sure. Do you want to add anything to that before we go to the hammering, or?
Yeah, I would just say that you guys all know that you probably don't really need me to analyze this or break it down very much for you, but here's what really happened, okay? Justin Trudeau and the president of Mexico just recently met, and they thought that they were going to land on a strategy of, we are going to stick together, and we're going to just tell him no, and he's not going to have a choice, and he's going to back down, right? That's what they thought. Meanwhile, they've completely forgotten who Donald Trump is. Donald Trump is going to win. That's bottom line. We literally told you how U.S. Steel started the foundries up. It takes 2 months to get the furnaces hot enough to actually start producing steel. It takes 6 months to actually start rolling out production. Guess what? We're 6 months in, and isn't it a coinkydink that today and on Thursday he put the tariffs into place? Of course, because we're ready to handle it. Okay, this is the problem and the thing that the left has been selling people forever. Now, I remember back in the 70s when the same exact thing was being said by the politicians, that in order for us to not pay more for our goods, we needed to import everything from China. In order for us to not pay more for our goods, we needed to go to plastic. See, we're paying the price for the decisions made in the 1970s. We are literally still paying the price for decisions made in the Carter administration. We didn't have a chance to dig out because why? We now find out that our presidents since Clinton have been complicit in our downfall. These people haven't tried. It was absolutely intentional. They deliberately shipped our money and our jobs overseas, deliberately, to try to basically put the entire world on the United States welfare rolls. That's literally what happened. Go ahead.
You can find the UN documents and the Trade Commission documents online, freedom of information. It's all out there, ladies and gentlemen. If you've got the gumption to read through this management speak garbage, and trust me, it takes a bit of effort, but you will see broad announcements being made, treaties being signed by Western governments. We will raise taxes on our own industries because we want to promote growth in the developing world. And we want mineral resources to go to the developing world. And we will we will send our tax dollars overseas. We will close our own factories. We will open up factories and we will import it, because then we can have economic interdependence, because the way it's written back then was to avoid future world wars. Of course, we know it was to sink the American dominance over the world economy, which had around 50% of the world economy at the time. and make the corporations who literally wrote the laws with the UN, even back then, even richer. We know that for a fact. And it all ties in. TPP with NAFTA, everything. It all feeds into that. It's globalism. That's what globalism is. It is corporate structures taking hold of governments, dominating trade commissions, writing treaties to send your jobs overseas so they can make more money and they can stop, effectively end competition, because they put regulations on new and developing companies in the Western world. You pay 3 or 4 times as much for energy. You pay double or 3 or 4 or 10 times as much for wages. You have to pay more taxation. You have more barriers to entry into a market than someone who is literally running an American company from a third world, utilizing slave labor and shipping it back to you. That's the game.
Absolutely. And I'll go one further. It's not about money. It's about power. It's about control. You know, people always make that mistake, is they always ask that question. They always say, well, how much money is too much? Why are they so greedy? This has little to do with greed and much more to do with power. It's the same reason why you're looking at social media companies all over the place right now literally go from being in charge and being in control of your life. Like, this is what it's all about. Control, power. They want you dominated. They want to be the ones. And what my point was that social media is trying to get a monopoly. That's what they want. They are deliberately trying to piss you off so that you vote for your own slavery, so that you tell Congress to do something. Just do something. I'm tired of losing my Twitter account. You know what? Screw your Twitter account. I know that sounds mean, but it's just an account. Start a new one. Just like Brendan Dilley has had to do. Just like Joey Manorino has to do. Don't leave, fight. But don't be scared of losing your Twitter account. Don't be scared of losing your Facebook account. Don't let these people have power and control. That literally is why we have built, all of us combined, not me, not Boogie, you. That is why we have built TavShow.com. So that you can find everybody you want to talk to, so that you can find everybody. When they kick you off, we're going to find you. We're going to broadcast it on TavShow.com, and we're going to make sure that everybody that wants to follow you is right back at work. That's what this is about. This week, probably right after this episode, I am going to build Mike Closer's page. He is going to be on part of the TavShow.com network. I still have to build people like Pepper Potts into the page because she does amazing spiritual work. These are people we all want to follow. We all want to stay connected, and that's what we're doing. We're fighting, but don't let them win. They're winning in psychology. That's what they want. They want you to feel defeated. They want you to feel like we just need somebody to fight for us so that Congress comes out and announces this beautiful net neutrality. And then what happens? Complete and total dominance, complete monopolies, complete censorship. I want you to remember this key point. Okay? The only reason you even have the internet today is because they deregulated the telecommunications industry in the 90s. That is the
Correct.
Only reason that you have high-speed internet today. It is the only reason that you have this social media internet. It's the only reason you're watching this show right now is because we deregulated the telecommunications industry. Don't let them put the regulations back. Don't let them get back in charge of your life. Maintain freedom, because we can build TavShow.com into a direct competitor of these people. We have plans. We just don't have money. We're working on it as fast as we can with the resources we have. I am a working class man, so I don't have a lot of disposable income, but I can promise you that I'm investing every dollar I can scrimp together to make this a site and a bigger platform for you, so that you always have a place to find everybody, so that we can reorganize, regather our forces, and go back and fight for our president, and fight for California, and fight for every state in this union to turn red tsunami 2018, because that's the mission. That's all that matters. Boogie, what do you got to say?
I think it's time for the hammering. I think it's a perfect segue. They want you to feel down. They want you to feel like losers. Well, how about we get spoken down to by one of the weakest foreign ministers you'll ever see in your life, the one from Canada? What do you think? Let's do it.
Stop the hammering.
Go ahead, Boogie.
Well, this is a rare treat in light of trade talks, in light of tariffs, in light of sanctions, James. There's nothing like seeing a softly spoken, weak as piss, I would call it, performance by your counterparts in Canada, declaring why Canada is going to kick your little bottoms red raw in regards to a trade war. But it's not actually called a trade war because, you know what, that just sounds a little bit too mean. So let's check it out.
Let's start out with what your prime minister said. Very, very harsh discussions, harsh words this past week, saying that there's a turning point now in the
Justin Trudeau was being harsh. I don't think so.
Canadian relationship.
You better be nice or you're going to timeout.
Well, first of all, Dana, it is very nice to be with you. Thank you for the invitation. I stood beside the Prime Minister when he made those statements, and they were strong statements because I think what it's important for Americans to understand
Here we go.
is the
now listen, Americans. Now, I think what's important for Americans to understand. Oh, this ought to be good. We're getting spoken down to. Good start.
Under your rules for the imposition of these tariffs was a national security consideration.
Yes.
So what you are saying to us,
that was dripping with condescension.
Is that we somehow represent a national...
You'll see this throughout this interview. It's a lot of like big smiles at the end of it. So it's like, okay, so do you understand how you're wrong and how this is going to hurt you? It's not very nice, is it? You know, you wouldn't want that, would you now? It's concern trolling. This is political concern trolling. After you see this, you'll understand full well why Canada has completely lost control of its borders and why the current Prime Minister in Canada, Justin Trudeau, dresses up in Indian garb to celebrate multiculturalism and feels cucky when people use the term mankind. Oh, I'm sorry. We say humankind here. We say humankind.
Have you seen how many outfits it's like that guy is like the epitome of the stage puppet. Every country they take him to, they put him in this like ridiculous, most traditional outfit they can find. Like literally like a kimono and some wooden slippers, and he's walking around like this. I mean, what the hell is wrong? These people are like the biggest panderers there are on the planet. It's retarded.
I feel like this is just repression. This is repressed. He's acting out, Justin Trudeau, because his dream job would have been playing the role of Austin Powers, International Man of Mystery. But he didn't get the
he lost it. He lost it to Mike Myers when they went in to do the casting call. They were like, man, this is a tough one. It's either Justin or Mike. I don't know. We got to pick here. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to go with Mike since he's talented.
Yeah, he's funny as well. He's funny and he's not repulsive. But let's carry on with your lecture. You're talking down. You're in the naughty corner. I want to be clear here.
This isn't a pundit. This is literally the Minister of Foreign Affairs for the country of Canada that is dripping this condescension on Americans and thinking she's like the schoolmarm chastising us.
Oh, it's a torrent. You're drowning in it. You're drowning in condescension. Never mind dripping. It is an absolute torrent.
Threat to the United States. And I would just say to all of Canada's American friends, and there are so many, seriously?
Seriously? That's the argument.
That is a government official. That was her response.
Yep.
Seriously?
Yep. Seriously? Like, you know, guys, like, you know, I took a selfie with Justin and he was on the stage. He was kind of like a little bit upset about this whole trade brouhaha. It's like, can't we just be friends, guys? You know, like, seriously, like, come on. Come on.
That your NATO allies represent a national security threat to you. And that's why the Prime Minister said it is, frankly,
the beautiful
insulting.
part about this, James, and audience, you'll see is the CNN host, actually pulls her up. And actually, you think you're in the Twilight Zone because she's actually, this woman is so bad and so terrible. The CNN host is actually like, well, you know what? Donald Trump's just saying what he was going to do. Like, he's just doing what he said he was going to do. Like, don't you think you're being a bit ridiculous here? It's incredible.
Reagan visited Canada.
Hold on. I gotta read this. I have to read this. Millie just put in the comments, like, oh my God, like, gag me with a chainsaw. Oh my God!
As long of course, as long as that chainsaw was made with good US made steel, then it's okay. Not going to be the Canadian steel. Those days are over.
Friends and neighbors and allies, we are kin who together have built the most productive relationship between any two countries in the world.
That lovely?
That was Ronald Reagan, and that's how Canadians feel. And so this is a really sad time for us.
It's sad.
We are hurt and we're insulted.
You mentioned the fact that the Trump
see the little like at the end of it, like, and we're insulted. Mm-hmm. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yep. You know that annoying thing that people do. It's like when you go to the DMV and you try to renew your driver's license, and they're like, "I'm sorry, but due to some kind of ridiculous regulation that nobody's ever heard of, we're not going to be able to renew your license today." Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, and they just smile as if to say, "Okay, that's it. No more questions. Don't ask any more questions. Okay, bye now. Bye."
Don't you love how they leave you sitting in line for like 2 hours before they tell you that too? You know, that you'd think at the information window, they could make sure all your shit's lined up, so that took you 5 minutes instead of waiting 5 hours and then being told, "Sorry, can't help you today."
Yeah, that's just a great argument for the government taking over everything, isn't it? Good on you, Democrats.
Reliance on steel from other countries limits the U.S. ability to produce military equipment should the need arise. America's first Homeland Security Secretary, Tom Ridge, or first advisor, I should say, wrote in an op-ed. He wrote this:
too good for
to rely upon foreign producers to provide for our domestic and military infrastructure amid such uncertainty is short-sighted and impedes our ability to be prepared and agile. Steel capacity is not something that can be replaced at the snap of a finger should allies become unreliable or our enemies disrupt the supply chain. By way of
yeah, see, because I agree with this, because wouldn't it be awful if America had to go to war and produce a number of war machines at the drop of a hat, and you call up Justin Trudeau and he's like, "Sorry guys, I'm going to be opening a curry house, so can we get together?" I mean,
dude, I wanted to make a point, and you just made me laugh my ass off. Oh my God, dude.
If we shoot let's remember, if we shoot our enemies, they win. But like most of all, I mean, these pompadoms are smoking hot. Like, yeah, I can't take that down.
So yeah, this is I wanted to just point out to that exact point was that when you're a friend, that doesn't mean you're dependent on them. When you're dependent on somebody else, then you're in their power. And that would put Justin Trudeau and the country of Canada in control of whether or not the U.S. could pursue anything. Like you just said, I'm busy building a curry house is just as valid of him saying as, I don't believe in the war you want to pursue, so we're not going to be providing you with that steel. I mean, think about that. If we think that we're doing the right thing, whether it's right or not is immaterial. If we, as a country, think we're doing the right thing, it's the right thing. And we can't be beholden to somebody else to tell us, no, that's not right, so we're not going to help you. No, that's the whole point. We need to be the one that everybody wants to rely on so that we can help stop all the madness that's happening around the world. But thanks for that laugh. I mean, nope, sorry, building a curry house is excellent. That's a much better point than mine.
I'm busy doing the multicultural thing. The war is going to have to wait. But see, now this is the former DHS secretary. Read between the lines here, okay? Steel capacity is not something that can be replaced at the snap of a finger. Should allies become unreliable or our enemies disrupt the supply chain? Now, I tend to think that this woman, I usually go the path of saying, they can't be that stupid. She's just playing politics, but she appears to be so dumb that I don't think that it applies in the case. What he's saying here is entirely true because you mentioned just before, not that long ago, they had to fire up the foundries, right? Yep. They have to get the ball rolling. Now we're in that stage. Now we apply the tariffs. Where he says, should allies become unreliable, if you look at this woman who is in control of foreign relations in Canada, I would suggest that horse has bolted. Our allies are unreliable.
That horse has left the barn. That's pretty unreliable right there.
She's proving it. She's proving it. No, you are unreliable. I mean, look at this train wreck of an interview.
And also, I think what he and others are arguing is it's not so much that they see Canada as a security risk, is that the United States has to be more
CNN going into bat for the president.
Well,
she's
look,
fired.
what I would say there is this
she's
is
50
an
lashes.
unprecedented use of Section 232, which is the national security consideration under which these tariffs are being levied. As a matter of U.S. law, Canada is considered a part of the national defense industrial base. We have been allies and have been working together.
And you can continue to be a part of that base. You're just going to have to pay a tariff. Got a problem, sweetheart? Didn't think so.
For 150 years.
Yes.
When Jim Mattis unveiled the National Defense Strategy at the beginning of the year,
are you on first name basis with Mr. Mattis? I don't think so.
He said something really powerful, which is that history proves that nations with allies thrive. That is 100% true.
That's not what he said.
Yes.
So
no, it's not. But what's our reference? What's our frame of reference here, James? Wait till you check this out.
I would just really say our closest allies in the world, you, the United States, please think hard about the message you're sending to your closest allies.
Well, you know,
and see that nod again. Yep. She's like, okay, here's our message to America.
Okay,
please
kindergartners,
think
have you
hard
learned
about what you're doing? Exactly. She's talking to you like your school children. That's exactly the vibe that I picked up. Okay, so put the coloring book down and continue buying our steel.
In response to the U.S. decision, you announced a series of retaliatory tariffs, not only on American steel and aluminum, but also a variety.
Because don't you love that? It's like, oh, come on, can't we be friends? Can't you consider that you're doing the wrong thing? Well, you're going to have to pay more for our orange juice then.
Variety of consumer goods, coffee, whiskey, tablecloths.
Whiskey.
You called it the strongest trade action Canada has taken since World War II.
Whiskey. I think the moonshiners and the bourbon producers in the South will be happy that people are going to have to pay a little bit more for that second-tier dusty old Canadian whiskey, aren't they? That seems like a strange point to raise, but anyway.
Are the U.S. and Canada in a trade war?
It's a war.
You know, Dana, I prefer not to use that kind of bellicose, militaristic language when talking about trade. But
if you shoot your enemies, they win.
This is the strongest trade action Canada has taken since the Second World War.
The strongest trade action that Canada has taken since the Second World War. What? Making whiskey a little bit more expensive.
Don't forget the orange juice. Don't forget the orange juice. Yeah, they want to mess with Florida.
You're going to have to. Oh, this is a really hard line. This is the strongest action we've taken on trade since the Second World War. You're going to have to pay an extra 2 cents for a cup of coffee. That suggests to me that you haven't been hard enough on trade since the Second World War. Just put that out there.
It is perfectly reciprocal and balanced. So these will be. This will be a dollar for dollar retaliation.
A dollar for dollar retaliation, yes, because you can fight a war with whiskey and coffee, can't you? Instead of steel. It's perfectly reciprocal. It's like for like, James. You're going to jack the prices up on our steel, so guess what? You're going to have to pay a little bit more for our whiskey. It's like, oh, okay, well, there's the war effort done. What else do we need? Right?
Our action is legal under WTO rules responsibly.
The WTO, the World Trade Organization, everybody's friend, the World Trade Organization, who has led us down the path of Western destruction of their own industries over the last 40 years. The WTO says it's okay for us to raise the price on our whiskey and orange juice. Well, isn't that lovely?
She's literally putting herself in the subservient position to the World Trade Organization. Like, is she not smart enough to see that? Like, literally, this is a country telling the world that they're in charge of us. Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it gets better.
That the U.S. action, which provoked this Canadian response, is illegal under the rules of the international trading system.
So if you wouldn't call it a
there's
trade
that nod
war,
again.
What would you describe is going on here?
Okay,
that
what is it if it's not a war? What is
U.S. and Canada are imposing new tariffs on one another.
Well, you know what? A word that I would not use to describe it.
That's not what you were asked. Do you see why Canada is going down the toilet, ladies and gentlemen? Why you have videos of people doing protests on their border because the borders are wide open in Canada. The economy's sinking. They're an absolute joke. They're an absolute joke in world politics.
You know what's sad?
In current administration in Canada.
These people are so lefty and so hung up. What's patently obvious just watching this girl is that we could literally win a trade war with them by just like bringing a puppy with us. We'll just bring a puppy to the trade negotiations.
Yeah, she comes across as the kind of girl, if you're in a trade war with her, you have two $10 notes and she's got one $50 note, and you say, I'll trade my 2 notes for your 1 note, because you're getting 2 notes. Yay, I'm winning the trade war. I doubled our notes, boss. Check it out. Shut up. I'm eating my curry.
Dana, is trade discussion. I've now heard a few people, including people you've been interviewing.
We can't use the term war. We have to use the word discussion. No, we wouldn't say that. That's too harsh as well.
This is also the EU. This is also Mexico as a trade discussion.
So what is it?
And that is to minimize something very, very serious. This is not just about words. This is about actions. Yep. And it's about actions which will hurt everyone. First and foremost, actually, American companies,
So Canada is now saying, with it in their soft spoken tone, well, I wouldn't like to use the term war because that would be a little bit unfair. And I was taking selfies with the president last week and yep. But you know what? We're going to be forced to raise the prices on our whiskey. And guess what, America? You're screwed. Yep. Do they really that they can compete? Do these people really think that they can compete with the American economy?
Oh, they really do.
What am I missing?
They're delusional. That's what you're missing. They're literally delusional. Listen to how she's talking. She's been like the utmost condescending the entire time. On top of the condescension, she literally thinks that she's morally superior. And she's literally trying to use complete liberal lefty language tactics of, well, we don't want to call it a war. We'll call it a conflict. Well, conflict is a little bit too rough. So instead of conflict, we'll call it a discussion. Like, literally, think about that. You just pointed this out, like, on your show, on the Boogie Bumpers, where you played the, what is that group? The group, the Minutemen, what is that?
The Hollow Men.
The Hollow Men, where they literally that is the language game that these people are trying to play, completely ignoring all of the facts, all of the suppositions that literally you guys cannot win a trade war with us. We will bankrupt your entire country. That is how far it'll go.
I hope it does, because then the Conservatives are a sure thing to get reelected if they're not already. Right, that's the other thing that's going to happen, and I think I think they know it too. I think the left in Canada knows that they're pretty much done for this cycle. So let's carry on. Only a minute or so to go.
Consumers. Canada is the single largest market for the United States, larger than China, Japan, and the UK.
So if it's not a trade war and it's not a trade discussion, what is it?
It is part of the issue here is it's allegedly not even about trade, right? We started our discussion describing the extent to which this is allegedly about national security.
She's been asked 2 or 3 times. Okay, so it's not a war, it's not a discussion. What do you call it? The 3rd time she's been asked. Well, I guess it's not even about trade.
I would say it is a very grave difference.
Let's make it about something else.
The closest allies of the United States and the U.S. around both national security and the global economy and the rules for the global economy.
Let me ask you a question from the point of view of President Trump. He made really clear during his campaign that his worldview is America first. And he's following through with that he pulled out of the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the TPP, the Paris Climate Accord, the Iran nuclear deal, and now he's doing this. So he would ask, what's wrong with putting America first? What's your response?
I just want to give a little tip of the hat and a round of applause to this presenter on CNN, James, because I think that probably damn near killed her, defending President Trump and pointing out, his America First policies and what the hell is wrong with that. But I think she's in the position of the person she's interviewing is so terrible. She can't agree. She has to go on the side of Donald Trump because, if you agree with this, that's career suicide, right?
Well, it is obviously up to Americans and American leaders to judge what are good policies for the American people.
Oh, bravo! Yay! Welcome to the real world. After we condescendingly say that, well, America, you really should think about this. And do you really want to get into a trade war? There's a puppy. Isn't that a cute little puppy? Do you really want to get into a trade war with us? I mean, we're going to raise the prices on coffee and whiskey, and that's going to be really bad for you. But then she finally acknowledges at the end of the interview, at the end of the train wreck, she crawls out of the destruction on the train line, you know, limbs missing and stuff, and goes, "Oh, I guess it's up to America what they do." It's like, yes, now you're getting it. Now it's not up to the World Trade Organization. It's not up to Justin Trudeau. It's not up to CNN. It's up to Donald Trump and his team and the people who put him in. And that's exactly what he's doing.
I would love. Yes, I was just going to say, I would love to point out here that this is literally an example of how statistics lie. Is that she just claimed on national television that they are our largest trading partner, regardless of any other country, is Canada. But those statistics are due to trans-shipping. The exact reason why we want to renegotiate NAFTA. That's the only reason. So what you guys are acting is the middleman banker. In other words, we're selling you, let's pretend for a second, our steel. You're taking 10% off the top and just sticking it on another ship and shipping it somewhere else with a little Made in Canada stamp on it and for the troubles of taking that 10% off the top. Literally, that's what they're doing. That's the only reason that statistic is like that, is because they're trans-shipping our goods. They're playing the middleman between us and China, between us and the UK.
James, I do feel the need to point out to you, though, buddy, it is currently illegal to misgender somebody who's trans in Canada. Please don't mention trans shipping now. We don't need
I knew where you were going before you could get there. You couldn't even get the joke out fast enough.
We don't need to get the. We definitely don't need to get the shipping companies involved. Okay? It's bad enough in Canada. It's bad enough in Canada as it is. You know they name all the ships females. That has to end. We can't do that anymore.
Oh, my face hurts.
Particular policy, the imposition of tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, is going to hurt Americans first and foremost.
Oh, did you hear that? Putting a tariff on Canadian steel, ladies and gentlemen, just to finish off the circus of delusion and condescension and the speaking down. A great comment from Kimmy. Wow, we're allowed to look after ourselves now. Thank you, teacher. That's appropriate. So just to top off the delusion cavalcade, James, she says, oh, you know what? If you engage in tariffs and trade war with Canada, it's going to hurt Americans first and foremost. So there you go. James was saying before, they want you to feel like losers. They want you to feel isolated. They want you to feel like you're getting beaten. If that beats you, ladies and gentlemen, if this performance is enough to sink the American economy due to tariffs on steel and trans ships, guess what? You deserve it. Sorry. It's not going to happen. That's your hammering.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Stop the hammering.
What an amazing hammering. Folks, we have been at it now for an hour and a half. We got to get out of the way, make room. I know that Mike Closer is coming on. If he's not already on, you know how Mike likes to come out early sometimes. So I don't know if he's out or not, but we do want to make way. We've been at it long enough. That was an excellent hammering, Boogie. A great episode, if I do say so myself. I hope you all enjoyed it. I hope you all had a good time. Follow me at Real Person Politics. Follow Boogie at Boogie Bumper. And follow all of us at Tav Show, tavshow.com. Be there, be square, figure it out. We were there to help. Send us any suggestions you have. We're more than willing to listen and try to make improvements to the site, find new presenters. Like I said, I'll be working on Mike Closer's page probably tonight. I'm very far behind, so I'm working as fast as I can. You guys are awesome. Boogie, any final words?
Never stop the hammering, and don't fear those trans ships loaded with curry from Canada, because I'm pretty sure your steel is going to be strong enough.
That's awesome. Guys, we love you. From the great Pacific Ocean, from both Boogie and I, aloha. Have a great night.